thank you for being here. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Jennifer. Jennifer, yes, that's coming soon. Yes, shout out to Summer. I'm doing shout outs. So write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Rosalie. Shout out to Joanna. My day's going well. Thank you for asking. I hope your day is going well. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Yazy. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Karen. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Yunche. Also leave a like if you enjoy these shout outs. I hope we can get to 100 likes. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Josephine. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Lena. Shout out to Miriam. Oops, I messed up. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Astrid. Shout out to Edgar. Shout out to Audrey. Shout out to Lee. Shout out to Yushi. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to, thank you for subscribing to Zoe. Shout out to Manji. Shout out to Lillian. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to Ushi. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Band. Shout out to Juji-sen. Oh, I can't pronounce it, sorry. Juji, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Gemma. Shout out to Addison, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ella, thank you for subscribing. Can you see that marker? I think I need to change the color. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Kimron, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Tasnova, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Ranka Muff. Shout out to Owen, thank you for subscribing. So shout out to these people. Okay, on to the next page. If you enjoy these shout outs, give it a thumbs up. I hope we can get to 100 likes. Thank you for being here. If you want a shout out, write your name in the chat. Shout out to Ali. Shout out to Hayden. Shout out to Taylor. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Destiny. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Shiloh. Oh no. I always pick the markers that run out. Shout out to Zayden. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Aurel. Shout out to Winter. Shout out to Aubrey. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Caroline. Shout out to Antonio. Shout out to Lulu. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Brooke. Matt, I just use any markers that I find on my desk. Shout out to Michael. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Maria. You found me. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Rada. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Macy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jusu. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Amaya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bentley. Shout out to Jerry. Shout out to Zamira. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Abdul. Shout out to Gia. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Wesile. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Thank you for subscribing. Wesile. Shout out to Elsie. Shout out to Genesis. Okay, shout out to these people. Okay, on to the next page. If you are enjoying these shout outs, give it a thumbs up. Oops, I messed up things. Also, if you want to leave your name in the chat, I will shout you out. Sometimes you have to write it more than once because the chat goes really fast. And while I'm writing one name, I look back and then I don't see your name. So you might have to write it more than once. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to Vivi. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Temp. Shout out to Marshall. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to Gianna. Shout out to Arpita. Shout out to Lincoln. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Abira. Shout out to Delane. Shout out to Melly. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Armand. Shout out to Kyra. Shout out to Alice. Shout out to Arvin. Shout out to Catalina. Shout out to Myrna. Shout out to Zamaria. Shout out to Kaylani. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Alexis. Shout out to Nevea. Oh. Can you spell your name again, Nevea? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Juliana. Thank you, Nevea. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Izzy. Shout out to Felipe. Shout out to Delaney. Shout out to Easton. Shout out to Juliet. Shout out to Ada. Shout out to Samira. Shout out to Gabby. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Kim. Shout out to Jamie. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Samantha. Shout out to Melissa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Isada. Shout out to Kira. Okay, shout out to these people. If you are enjoying the live stream, give it a thumbs up. I hope you like it. I hope we can get to 100 likes. On to the next page. Shout out to Annette. Shout out to Corey. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Adriana. Shout out to Marja. Shout out to Bates. Shout out to Jamie. Shout out to Mimi. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Danny. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Remy. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Arlith. Shout out to Ikram. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Manon. Shout out to Sana. Shout out to Sinead. Shout out to Shaylin. Shout out to Araya. Shout out to Veronica. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Cosmo. Shout out to Martin. Shout out to Maya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Christian. Shout out to Avery. Oh, whose name did I write wrong? Sorry if I said your name wrong. Shout out to Imogen. Shout out to Iris. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Elle. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Marsha Fire. Shout out to Heather. Shout out to Rachel. Shout out to Sajal. Shout out to Eddie. Shout out to Maheen. Shout out to Cheyenne. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Soul. Shout out to Aaron. Okay, shout out to these people. Thank you also for the 100 likes. Maybe we can reach 200 likes. So give it a thumbs up if you like the shout outs. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Darian. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Autumn. Shout out to Carolina. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to, oh no, I missed it. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Pink Hearts. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Emma. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to Leah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Winter. Shout out to Carla. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to MJ. Shout out to Beatrice. Shout out to Rose. Shout out to Harsh. Shout out to Clara. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Aitana. Shout out to Maribel. Shout out to Katie. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Vivi. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Dallas. Shout out to London. Shout out to David. Shout out to Katie. Shout out to Azriel. Shout out to Bela. Shout out to Rosanna. Shout out to Darcia. Oh no, I spelled it wrong. Darcia. Shout out to Anissa. Shout out to Amina. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Cami. Shout out to Louie. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. If you want a shout out, write your name in the chat. Also, if you're enjoying these shout outs, give it a thumbs up and write your name in the chat. Shout out to, was it Cam and Trident? That subscribed. Thank you for subscribing. Let me know if I spelled your name wrong. I'll write it again. Shout out to Emmanuel. Shout out to Journey. Shout out to Scar. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Ace. Shout out to Seneca. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Brenda. Shout out to Reese. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Paul. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Foxy. Shout out to Nani. Shout out to Vana. Shout out to Sephora. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Maggie. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Gigi. Shout out to Becky. Shout out to Avani. Shout out to Macy and Liam. Shout out to Eilish. No, oh yeah, Eilish. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Risco. Shout out to Vera. Shout out to Nancy Jane. Shout out to Fifi. Shout out to Athena. Shout out to Brantley. Shout out to Albert. Shout out to Cameron. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Graham. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Adina. Shout out to Rebecca. Okay, shout out to these people. Thank you for being here. If you are enjoying this live stream, give it a thumbs up. Give me like 30 seconds. I'm gonna go grab water. Okay, I'm back. I went to grab water. So give it a thumbs up if you are enjoying this live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. We're about 60 away. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Yvette. Shout out to Basie. Shout out to Channing. Shout out to Abigail. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Enderlin. Shout out to Monica. Shout out to Fiorella. Shout out to Savannah or Sav. Shout out to Kathleen. Shout out to Mila. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Casey. Shout out to Dean. Shout out to Lola. Shout out to Sophie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tanya. Shout out to Arleth. Shout out to Gran. Shout out to Marissa. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Gretel. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Julie. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Ari. Shout out to Cherry. Shout out to Marissa. Shout out to Aunt. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Fallon. Shout out to Sadie. Shout out to Zoe. No, what was it? Oops. It wasn't, I don't think it was Zoe. It was Zoel, I think. Was it Zoel? Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Megan. Whoops. Megan. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Simon. Shout out to Vicky. Okay, shout out to these people. On to the next page. If you are enjoying this live stream, give it a thumbs up. I hope we could get to 200 likes. Thank you for being here. If I haven't gotten to your name, please write your name maybe more than once. Thank you for your patience. I know I wish my hand can work a little faster. Hey, shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Maverick. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Catalina. Shout out to Alice. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Josue. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Jalea. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to, oh my goodness. Shout out to Zayden. Shout out to Natalia. Shout out to Kensley. Shout out to Aaliyah. Oh no, I spelled it wrong. Aaliyah, can you write your name again? Oh, I was close. Okay, so Aleeah. Thank you, Aaliyah. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Amanda. Shout out to Susan. Shout out to Chrislyn. Shout out to Rosanna. Shout out to Malaika. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Fiona. Shout out to Remington. Shout out to Messi. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Yoon Jin. Shout out to Clement. Shout out to Victoria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Georgia. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Tina. Shout out to Jornay. Shout out to Jake. Shout out to Milky and Harvey. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. If you are enjoying this live stream, give it a thumbs up. We're almost at 200 likes. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Elisa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Hunter. Shout out to Rosie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to B. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Arnaz. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Alondra. Shout out to Aussie. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Cece. Shout out to Star. Shout out to Penny. Shout out to Dior. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Jessa. Shout out to Naya. Oh, Ashley, thank you. Shout out to Lizzie. Shout out to Layla. Oh, what? Not Layla. It was Lele. Sorry. Lele. Shout out to Hendry. Shout out to Gigi. Shout out to Milani. Oh wait, this marker doesn't work. Shout out to Milani. Shout out to Amira. We're almost at 200 likes. Only 4 more likes. Shout out to Carol. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Matilda. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Chance. Shout out to Stephanie. Shout out to Charlotte. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Heather. Shout out to Aminsha. Shout out to Miley. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Liv. Shout out to Nevaeh. Shout out to Niece. Nisi, sorry. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Mikhail. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you for 200 likes. If you are enjoying this live stream and the shout outs, keep the likes going. Maybe we can get to 300. Thank you, thank you. Shout out to Annie. Shout out to James. Shout out to Devin. Shout out to Lola. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Kaya. Shout out to Annabelle. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Jessa. Shout out to Emiliano. Shout out to Lele. Shout out to Aria. Shout out to Clemen. Shout out to L'Oreal. Shout out to Lisette. Shout out to Gray. Shout out to, Lisette with 2 S's. Lisette. Shout out to Sydney. Shout out to Emerson. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Daniela. to Shyla. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Shar. Shout out to Paulson. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Sayiza. Yeah, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Farah. Shout out to Nick. Shout out to Lupe. Shout out to Gianna. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Chantel. Shout out to Bia. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Benjamin. Shout out to Chloe. Oh no, this is running out. Oh no, that's worse. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Nay. Shout out to Gracelyn. Shout out to Giselle. Shout out to these people. If you like the shout outs, give it a thumbs up. Maybe we can get to 300 likes. Shout out to Jojo. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Valerie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Selena. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Kalani. Shout out to Adrian. Shout out to Rosina. Shout out to Harumi. Shout out to Chinobu. Shout out to Dean. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Yasmin. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Camilo. Shout out to Amir. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Tinsley. Shout out to Arena. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Raven. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Daniel. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to BB. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Aziz. Shout out to Olive. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Paula. Shout out to Heidi. Shout out to Dessa. Shout out to Nikki. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Larissa. Shout out to Manon. Shout out to Analea. Shout out to Sanu. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. If you like the live stream, give it a thumbs up. These are the last few pages. Sorry, from this amount, look at all these. From all of this to, we're down to like the last couple of pages. Thank you for being here. Give it a thumbs up if you like this live stream. Also write your name in the chat if you want a shout out. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Dylan. Wait, Dylan with two. Is it two? Oh no, just one L. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Yoon. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Martis. Shout out to Melissa. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Helen. Shout out to Lupita. Shout out to Jose. Shout out to Venny. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Kaylin. Let's try to get to 300 likes. Shout out to Kayan. Or Kayan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Stevie. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to Gorilla. Shout out to Alan. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Jess. Shout out to Zay. Shout out to Adelaide. Oops. Adelaide. Let me write that again. There we go. Shout out to Adelaide. Shout out to Wendelin. Oh, Lexi. Was it Lexi? The shout out? Shout out to Celeste. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Maria. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you are enjoying the shout outs. Shout out to Evie. Also subscribe if you like the live streams. I would truly appreciate it. Shout out to Paula. Shout out to Lydiana. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Ellie, and who else? Can you write it again, please? Shout out to Ellie, and there was someone else. Shout out to Valencia. Shout out to Betsabi. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Kalani. Shout out to Kyrie. Eliza. Shout out to Ellie and Eliza. Thank you for writing it again. Shout out to Reese. Shout out to Gorilla. Oh, I already have you. Shout out to, oh, who did I say? I forgot. Oh, Zaya. Shout out to Zaya. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. If you are enjoying the live stream, give it a thumbs up. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Nixon. Shout out to Raylan. I hope I spelled it right. If not, write it again. Shout out to Miriam. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Tasmain. Shout out to Kiyomi. Can you see that? No, you can't. Shout out to Jaden. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Saru. Shout out to Maine. Shout out to Nahi. Shout out to Auna. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Johnny. Shout out to Mars. Shout out to Abigail. Shout out to Romina. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Arian. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Alice. Shout out to Benitez. Shout out to Rena. Give it a like if you are enjoying this live stream. Shout out to Kaylin. Oh no, Kaylin, how do you spell? Oh, thank you, Kaylin. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to Reem. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Carolina. Shout out to Jessica. Oops, sorry. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Zara. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Jisoo. Or Jisoo, sorry. Shout out to Ame. Or Amy, sorry. Shout out to Eliza. Shout out to Martin. Shout out to Wyatt. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Minnie. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Eliana. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. If you are enjoying this live stream, give it a thumbs up. We're almost at 300 likes. Just about 27 more people or more likes. 27 more likes. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Brielle. Shout out to Jimin. Shout out to Yuna. Shout out to Arlette. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Razan. Shout out to Jenny. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Yoretsi. Shout out to Pietra. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Anya. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to, I think it was Renee and John. Shout out to Cassidy. Shout out to Marion. Shout out, oh, wrong color. Shout out to Raylan. Shout out to Shelly. Shout out to Lucero. Shout out to Cassidy. Shout out to Salim John. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Chloe. Chloe. Shout out to Lulu. Shout out to Lourdes. Shout out to Charlie. We're almost at 300 likes. I hope you can like this live stream. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Razan. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Rylan. Shout out to K-Man. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Raghat. We're 10 likes away from 300. Shout out to Helena. Shout out to Adriana. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Gracie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Juanita. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. We're almost at 300 likes. 8 more people. 8 more likes. Thank you for being here. If you want me to shout you out, write your name in the chat. Shout out to Alyssa. Shout out to Joan. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Heba. Shout out to Ari. Shout out to Faith. 5 more likes to 300. Shout out to Phoenix. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Asa. Shout out to Baharit. Shout out to Abigail. Shout out to Michelle. 3 more likes to 300. Shout out to Juanita. Shout out to Nyla. Shout out to Anthony, and I didn't see the other name. Can you write it again, please? 1 more like away from 300. Shout out to Angelina. Yay, we made it to 300 likes. Thank you so much. Shout out to Aaliyah. Thank you for subscribing. Oh, how do you spell your name? Aaliyah. Shout out to Karsten. Shout out to Lena. Shout out to Anais. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Annalie. And how do you spell that? Annalie. I don't know if I spelled your name right. Shout out to Uriel. Shout out to Elsa. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Maluma. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Wyatt. Thank you for subscribing. Subscribe if you like the live streams. Shout out to Demi. Shout out to Marley. Or Marley, sorry. Shout out to Milky and Harvey. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zuzu. Shout out to Alizé. Whoops. Let me write it again. Shout out to Alizé. Shout out to Estefania. Shout out to Emiliano. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Marissa. Shout out to Marissa, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Karis. Or Carries, sorry. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Juliana. Shout out to Lataro. Shout out to these people. All right, I will see you next time. Thank you so much for being here. If I didn't get to your name, I will get to yours tomorrow. Okay, I'll do another live stream tomorrow. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Have a great night or a great day. Take care. See you next time. Subscribe so you know when I live stream. Take care.